As entrepreneurs, we all have a reason why we chose to leave our 9 to 5 for an 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm here to capture those stories of why we all hustle and grind for our companies. Bob Gonzalez, author of A Flicker in the Water Inside the Tales, takes readers on an unforgettable sea adventure filled with entertaining and educational stories about the Gulf of Mexico. This is Bob's second book following his poetry collection, Eagle Claws for Freedom's Cause. A passionate outdoorsman and deep-sea fishing enthusiast, Bob brings the ocean to life with his vivid storytelling. He's currently working on his third book, Those Championship Times. Originally from northeastern Pennsylvania, Bob now enjoys life in Florida, writing, fishing, and cheering for the Tampa Bay Rays. Bob, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate you being here.
Hello, Andrew. It's great to be here.
So you have an interesting ninja skill, and so let's just start off at first. What do you do? What's your secret ninja skill, or your not so secret ninja skill?
Well, right now, after 30 years in the retail small business, I'm being an author now is what I'm doing, and I've got a book out that about fishing and offshore fishing mostly, and about our oceans that I think people can experience what it feels like to be out on the ocean, even if they've never been fishing before. I wrote it with people like that in mind.
Because there's, as part of your book, there's a really specific reason why you liked fishing. And I think in the forward of the book, was something, there was a quote from there that I really liked. And I'm going to let you say it because I'm going to butcher it. Like specifically, there's a quote about why fishing is different. It's not just about going out and catching fish. There's more to it than just that.
Oh, definitely. You're out in tune with nature. There's the stars in the sky and the clouds, and the water surrounding you, and the fish in the ocean. It just you get closer to nature, and I think by being closer to nature, you get more in touch with yourself and our Creator. Really, you feel like a part of something. I know it's an often used cliche, but you really do feel like a part of bigger something than yourself, and that's the world around you.
And I think as entrepreneurs, that's difficult for us sometimes is we don't get that time to stop. Either we're hustling in our company or we're keeping something going, or just, the wonderful world of entrepreneurship where nothing ever goes right. Things take 3 times as long as you expected and cost 10 times as much. Sometimes it's difficult for us to connect with that. And for me, I know just being outside is something that I do bare minimum weekly, at least once a week, just because getting around, having that sense of being separated from the hustle is really impactful for me and helps me to get some more clarity on where I need to be, helps me go into visionary mode so I can kind of go out and do the cool things that we build without being stuck in the trenches all day. Is similar thing to you? Yeah.
Well, yeah, sure. You recharge your batteries, you get fresh ideas. Oh, you definitely. I think we as people are made that way. That's why, we have the seventh day for rest.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. True story. So how'd you get involved in fishing? I know everyone has their story behind fishing, but how did you do it?
I always liked it from the time I was a kid. I mean, I remember, 6, 7 years old, just enjoying it, catching a fish in a lake or a stream or something. And just that tug on the line just gives you a feeling of adrenaline that you just can't get with anything else. I mean, it's just incredible. And I've been doing it since then. Freshwater fishing mostly when I started out. I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I used to fish in New Jersey. I graduated to fishing in the ocean in Barnegat Light, New Jersey. When I was about 11 years old, I reeled in my first ocean fish, a bluefish, and I've been hooked ever since. And I came down to Florida in my 20s, and I started fishing a lot in the Gulf of Mexico, and after doing that for like 15 years, I thought, I got some stories here I think people can really enjoy. And even if they've never been fishing before, I want to make them feel what it's like, experience what it's like to be out there. And I made a book about it.
I was going to say hooked. Great joke there.
Yeah.
Dad jokes are my gift to the world.
Yeah.
Gift. So you wrote a book on this whole subject. So you're truly nerdly, said with love. And as far as fishing is concerned, what was the book about?
Well, it's a short story collection of my experiences mostly, not all. I mean, there are things about our oceans, what they mean to mankind, history in the oceans. I talk about Christopher Columbus. I talk about pirates. I talk about the fish, how far back they go, the way they've evolved over time, and how good they are to catch and eat.
So, like, as far as ocean fishing, somebody who has never been ocean fishing, I've like been fly fishing a couple of times and things like that, just smaller stuff when I was younger. What is the like? What type of fish are we talking about? Like, what
Well,
type of fish is this one?
down here in the Gulf of Mexico, we get the warm water fish, the ocean fish like wahoos and mahi mahis and tunas. For the really hardy fishermen, you can get blue marlin and swordfish and the offshore fish, sharks, that red snappers, groupers, amberjacks, different varieties of all kinds of those. There's a couple of stories in there. I got really lucky one time. I found a spot in only like 100 feet of water where I caught a red snapper that was 42 pounds. And that was only 3 pounds shy of the Florida record. Um,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. But then there are other stories in there. You'll have to read those. The story of Flicker in the Water was inspired by a tuna. And I wrote, neither fisherman or fish go through a full season undefeated unless you're the 1972 Miami Dolphins.
True story. True
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
But that sounds really interesting. I think that's. I mean, basically, you're listing off the names of fish, and I'm thinking, restaurant menu, a lot of
Yeah.
really good fish.
Yeah.
Much better than what we're used to as far as like inland fishing. I mean, I'm on Lake Erie. I don't know if I'd ever want to catch anything on Lake Erie or eat anything from Lake Erie, but there's some other issues going on there. But it was really it's interesting that we just think about these fish in like little plastic trays or in a can. We don't think about going out and catching them for ourselves. Right. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how many fish come out of the ocean every day when you see all those cans in the supermarket. It's just incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, the tuna's really good. My favorite, though, I think of all the fish to eat, is one you don't see very often. It's called a wahoo.
Hmm.
You have, yeah, the wahoo is a long, slender fish. They're really fast, and they light up in all kinds of vibrant colors when they get hooked. And they're one of the fastest swimming fish in the ocean, but man, they're really good to eat.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah,
I'll have to look for those. I have to get
yeah.
probably going to be found at a fishmonger, not like, your standard supermarket.
Yeah, it might be hit and miss because they're usually solitary swimmers. They're not like the dolphins who swim in those. I mean, the tunas who swim in those huge schools. The wahoos are more solitary, so you don't get them as often.
Mm.
They're harder to get in a group, so you don't have a big harvest of them like you do some of these other fish.
Interesting.
But they're
Interesting.
really good, man. If you ever see wahoo, you got to get one.
I will do. Absolutely. Because I'm a big fan of fish. So I
Okay.
will try out any fish. Salmon is my favorite, but I'll try out
Mm,
any fish that's out there. Cool, man.
mm.
So you had said earlier that you had owned a bunch of businesses. What kind of businesses did you own? Or was it like a serial entrepreneur? Yes, everything.
Well, actually, well, it's good you brought that up. I was thinking along the lines of the one business that I own, but yeah, there is a little more. I for 30 years I was in the soft pretzel business in the malls. It was a retail shop. It was called Pretzel Twister, and I named the boat that we fished on the Twister after the shop. So yeah, and I had some branch offshoots of that. I did puzzle stores for a while. We had games and puzzles and things like that. But my main business for all those years was soft pretzels.
How did I love to hear the story about how you got into it? And I've never really talked to anyone who's been in soft pretzels. How did you get into soft pretzels?
Well, soft pretzels back in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, was beginning to be popular in Pennsylvania, where I'm from, in the Dutch country, the Amish country down in southern Pennsylvania, started really producing a lot of soft pretzels. So the company was brand new. I lived in northern Pennsylvania, and I saw this person from Valley Forge, PA, who owned a pretzel company in Naples, Florida. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, the soft pretzel concept was beginning to really take off. Being from Pennsylvania, where I'm from, the Dutch country, the Amish country in southern PA, soft pretzels were beginning to pop up all over the place. And I saw an ad in the USA Today one day, and I saw this guy from Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, had a pretzel company that he was starting in Naples, Florida. So I drove. I used to play college baseball, and we used to come down to Florida for spring every year. And I wanted to make the move permanent because being from Buffalo, those winters are long and tough. So I wanted to come down and be in a warmer climate. So I drove down to Naples, and I started out with a franchise for this company called Pretzel Twister. And 30 years later, I am still doing it. Not as much as kind of on the side now. I'm more of a full-time author now, but yeah, I mean, we were in malls here in Florida for like 30 years with the pretzel twister. And I had some offshoot businesses from that. I was in the puzzle store for a while where we would sell puzzles and games and gifts and things like that. And then I got into real fishing big time here in the Panhandle area in Destin, man. They call Destin the world's luckiest fishing village. And that's where my first store was. So I named the boat the Twister, and I just started fishing all the time, and I led to the book, and here we are talking.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So pretzels and puzzles. I mean, they both start with
Yeah.
P, but what got you into puzzles too?
Well, it was just we met a guy who had another pretzel store, and he said, I'm also do this puzzle business here, and if you want to try it out, it's pretty profitable for me. So we did it for a couple of years, and it was mostly a seasonal thing for the holidays in the malls, and we did that for a while, and then that kind of went out of style a little bit. But the pretzels, for a long time, I thought, with this low carbohydrate thing and all this other stuff, the pretzel business, I don't know, because our pretzels are all carbs, I thought it would affect us, but it really never did. I mean, people still gobble them up. They love them, and it's still a good product.
Exactly. And it's an easy snack. It's, there's so many other companies out there like Auntie Anne's, done really well. The pretzel industry seems to like just be unstoppable.
I know Auntie Anne's is huge. I think they were bought up by Mrs. Fields a while back. I don't know where they are now, but Auntie Anne's. The guy that I met with was the pretzel twister. His name was his Keith was his name, and he perfected the recipe from Auntie Anne's, and he actually put on 50 pounds doing it. But he came up, he came up with a great product, and the taste of the pretzel twister pretzel is just the best out there.
Interesting. Anything besides like you said, the taste, it just the way that it's made, or do they do anything special with them, or do you have like specialty pretzels or?
Yeah. Oh, we did lots of specialty pretzels. There's regular salted pretzel, cinnamon pretzel, almond pretzel, garlic pretzel. You could go on forever. There's even a pretzel dog now where you wrap the hot dog in the pretzel dough, and they're really good too. Yeah. That evolved over the years. We didn't start out with all that. When we started out, we just had maybe 3 or 4 flavors, and that was it. And now there's like 10 or 12 flavors.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I know the pretzel dogs. I love anything pretzel. I'll eat. I just pretzel buns, pretzel dogs, pretzel anything else. Just a beautiful thing, man. Just a beautiful thing. So 30 years in the pretzel industry. You also did puzzles in that. So now, of course, you're going to start like, a pepper sauce thing or some other, anything that starts with P, you'll start another business. Any like, I know as entrepreneurs, we love creating stuff. We love like just going out there and doing it often just for the sake of creating. Anything else you do? Any other company that you would think about founding, or is it just pretty much just the authoring at this point?
Well, right now, my creative juices are flowing into the writing. I wrote that book. Here's what it looks like in case anybody wants to know.
Yeah. Oh, that's
and I have a shirt too, a flicker in the water.
I love it.
That's a Goliath grouper on the cover, by the way. They're all over the place here in Naples. They're the biggest grouper in the grouper family.
Wow. That is a big fish on the cover of the book.
They're really big. Yeah. The creativity is channeled right towards the books. Now I've got another one coming out maybe about a year from now. It's called Those Championship Times. It's about the baseball franchises and their history from 1900 to today.
Has that always been a passion, just baseball, or is it just
what sport in general?
Okay.
I've always enjoyed sports, and I don't want to make it just like a regular sports book, even though there are some facts and figures in there. There's a lot of wordplay, which I really enjoy doing.
Interesting, because I know there's a bunch of like books on sports and history of baseball and stuff. Besides the wordplay, what specifically is in your book that kind of makes it a little bit different than other books that are out there?
Well, I think it's a broad-based general, history of the franchises and the way baseball has evolved. Like back in the early 20s, they used to throw spitballs and grease balls, and they could put dirt on the ball and things like that. But all that, as time goes on, all those things change, and now spitballs are outlawed. And it was Babe Ruth actually who saved baseball from the betting scandals too. And I talk about that kind of stuff. I try to make it baseball, Americana, and wordplay.
Interesting. Because I never knew that. Like I don't know a huge amount about baseball. For me, it's like I have a general idea what it is, but
Mhm.
I didn't think about kind of why some of these things were stopped. There's got to be a reason why spitballs are no longer legal.
Yeah, it makes the ball dip and do all kinds of gyrations that a regular straight ball won't do.
Huh.
Yeah,
Interesting. So it
yeah.
just made it too hard to hit, or
Oh
like
yeah,
there
it makes it harder to hit for sure. Yeah, because it's dancing more. It takes it spins more. It spins, it dips and curves more than a
huh.
regular ball would. Yeah, same thing. They try to put grease and things on the ball. So every once in a while, you'll see a pitcher. You know what? How they come off the mound and the umpire checks their gloves and their hands and stuff. They're
Okay.
always checking that to see if there's any foreign substances there that they might
Hmm.
be using. Yeah, that's why they do that nowadays. I'll give
Interesting.
you an example of if you want to hear one real quick about
Yeah.
the wordplay. There was a
Yeah.
guy this weekend for the Yankees. His name is Ben Rice. He's a rookie. He hit 3 home runs, and that's never happened ever for the Yankees before. So I saw Ben Rice was able to peel off 3 home runs.
Nice.
That's the sort of thing that's in there.
I love that. That'll definitely add on. Well, as you said earlier in the interview today, it's that dad jokes are my gift to the world, and that goes right along with it. So of course I'm going to like it. I think
Mm.
it's not only difficult to do the wordplay like that, but it's really trying to find new and novel ways of making it work, and
Yeah,
making it makes it very entertaining as well. So not just a standard book on unless you're really a baseball nerd, reading a history book on baseball is difficult because it's just all stats and things.
yeah,
That's
I don't
that's an
want to
extra
do
level.
that. I want it to be more inclusive and people, again, like the same with my fishing book, people who don't even like baseball, I want them to enjoy the book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now back to fishing. So remind me again, how long have you been fishing, doing the ocean fishing?
I started ocean fishing in earnest, I mean, in the 90s.
Hmm.
And I did it till about 2015. I'm not doing it as much now. You know, I have an elderly mother. I got to watch her a lot. So I only get to go a couple times a year. But I did it for like 20 years, 15 or 20 years. I mean, hard. I mean, 4 or 5 times a week. I would even stay overnight out there.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's a real passion for me. I mean, just like just being out on the ocean is a passion for me. As
And
long as you stay safe. The ocean, the first order of business is to stay safe. Always know what the weather is doing. Check your radars. Check your weather reports. Make sure the craft you're on is safe. Make sure your engine's running properly. All that kind of stuff. You definitely the first thing to do is to be safe out there and
because I think
take your seasick pills.
I think one of the things that we think about when we think fishing is we think, decent sized fish, not too big. That's not ocean fishing, if I'm right. It's it's
Well,
it's not these smaller fish. There's bigger.
there's bigger if you want to go for them. There's
Right.
definitely bigger. There's tunas and dolphins and marlin, and there's bigger fish, but you can go for smaller fish too if you want to do inshore saltwater fishing. There's lots of smaller fish, lots of snappers and groupers that don't get huge but are really good to eat.
So I guess one question I always love to ask, questions like this, like, if you have somebody who's interested in fishing, how do they get started? Like, what do you rent a boat? Do I have to buy a boat? Do I have to buy line? Like, how do I get started in ocean fishing?
Well, you could always rent a boat. Like they have charter boats where a guide will take you and you can start learning from them. I mean, they don't mind sharing their secrets. Then there's lots of boat clubs around where other members have experience and you can kind of like make friendships like that in boat clubs where you can join in on outings with people. And over time, it's not something I think you can learn in 1 or 2 times. It might take a year or two to start learning, but after a while, you'll become pretty knowledgeable on how to do things out there and where the fish are, and you'll be catching fish on your side. And maybe you might be taking somebody else one day.
Interesting. Because I know
Yeah,
when you think about being in business, sometimes you think about things like, I'm going to go golfing, but fishing might be another one. You know?
yeah.
Might be another alternative to golf if you're not good at golf. I have to golf with a hunting license because I'm not good. Get things. It's
And
not
find
right.
out the kind of fishing that you enjoy doing. I mean, some people enjoy the pier, some people enjoy fishing from the beach, other ones might like the bay, or inshore fishing. I mean, the offshore fishing is very niche, and it's not for everybody. Some people don't like being out there like that far all the time. I enjoy it, but it's not for everybody.
Now, when you say offshore, how far out are you talking?
Well, anywhere from like 10 to 100 miles.
Okay. Yeah, way like you would not
Yeah,
see
yeah, yeah,
you wouldn't see
yeah.
the shore. That's right.
No, no, you wouldn't see the shore. Have a good radar, a compass, and an EPIRB, a flare in case you need it.
Just in case. Okay, good to
Yeah,
know. Because that's something again, like we're not used to it. Like I'm here in Lake Erie. It's a huge lake, but I can see the other side.
yeah, really.
It's hard to see, but
Yeah,
it's not 10 miles long.
yeah,
So or not 10 miles wide, I should say. But
yeah,
interesting to know. Interesting about that.
yeah.
Cool. So
Yep.
as we're getting towards the end of things here, I do have one question that I ask everyone. What is a
Okay.
podcast or a book that has had a significant impact on your life recently, in the past? I'm pretty liberal with my definition of what that means. I just want to leave people with one book that you would, or podcast that you would recommend that's really had an effect on your life and you'd like to share with others.
Well, the books that I recommend, I gotta definitely recommend The Old Man and the Sea because Ernest Hemingway wrote that in Cuba. That's where my dad is from, and Mariel, his granddaughter, wrote the foreword for my book. So definitely, was heavily influenced by The Old Man and the Sea. Then there's Moby Dick and there's Count of Monte Cristo. I like. Actually, the Bible has some great stories too, even about fishing.
Mhm.
If you talk, yeah. And one thing that I learned when I was writing my book, which I did not know, the Sea of Galilee in northern Israel is not a sea, it's a lake.
Hmm.
And it's a freshwater lake and it's below sea level. And I never knew that. I was so interested when I saw that. I put it in the book.
Interesting. That's
Yeah,
really interesting. Huh.
yeah,
Never knew
yeah,
that. Cool, man.
yeah, yeah.
Well, Bob, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really, really appreciate it, man.
All right, Andrew, thank you. It was a pleasure being here.
Thanks. Have a good one.
You too.
Thanks again for joining us on the Hustle and Grind podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Bob, check out the link in the description.